Hello and welcome to Blythe Business News. For this edition, I'm joined by the team from Pantheon Resources, Chief Executive Jay Cheatham, Technical Director Bob Rosenthal. Pantheon, listed in London on the AIM market with a ticker of PANR and currently a market capitalisation of around £340 million sterling. The company is very active on the North Slope in Alaska. Jay, can I come to you first? I mean, it's no secret. In recent days, if not weeks, there's been lots of speculation in the media and elsewhere about Pantheon, what's going on. Give us a quick, what's your view on the whole thing of this speculation?
Okay, Tim. Well, we announced some results last week, and we had a different mix of liquid hydrocarbons that we were producing from this well than our guidance. Our guidance had been oil. We got a mix of oil and NGLs and condensate. We know we can't capture quite all of the really valuable ends of the condensate stream right now, and we're getting about 80 to 90% of ANS value for those NGLs and condensate. But we did guide for oil, and now we've got a different mix. So that was a bit of a surprise to the market. I would like to say, and we will talk a little more about pricing, we have plenty of money to prosecute everything we need to do at Alkaid, and we don't have any current plans to go out to the market and raise funding. So I think a lot of that has been speculation in the market. Bob, do you have anything you want to add?
I would just add that, where we're at this moment in time is, we're in the process of testing the Alkaid well, and nothing we've seen so far has indicated to us that our ultimate resource assessments are wrong. And, we'll talk about more about that in a moment.
Okay. One of the other things that came up in the last few days has been this issue of the blockage in the pipeline that you have with the sand. And it's now coming out that actually you're going to need a larger rig to unblock the pipeline. When you first became aware of this issue, why didn't you just get a bigger rig then?
Well, Tim, we wanted to, obviously. And the rig that we were contracting for had a very public catastrophic failure working on the well that prior to the one when it was supposed to come to us. So obviously we couldn't use that rig. We went to plan B, which was a non-winterized workover rig. The state has some regulations about when you can use a non-winterized rig. We were outside of that window. We went to the state and asked for a waiver. They turned us down. We appealed to the state again for a waiver. They turned us down again. So then we had to go to Plan C. Plan C was an option between a through tubing, coil tubing unit cleanout, which we knew was not the optimum because it was a smaller unit than we would like, or to bring into service a mothballed drilling rig that's sitting mothballed at Dead Horse. To do that would have required weeks of shakedown for the drilling rig, and it appeared that it would be about 45-day delay past when we could get a coil tubing unit, and the cost would have been about 10x what the coil tubing unit would cost. So we opted for the through tubing coil tubing unit, and we believe we cleaned out about 4,000 feet out of the 5,000 feet of lateral that we have perforated and stimulated. It was just an option of timing and cost, Tim.
Okay, and this new larger rig should be with you roughly how soon?
We now have sight of a workover rig that's currently working for another operator, and we should get that rig when it is released from the current operation, Tim, and that we're expecting in the next 10 days to 2 weeks.
Thanks for that. Now, with some trepidation, I'm going to ask you to explain this pricing model under which you're operating, the so-called TAPS pricing model. And if you could explain that in simple terms, and then tell us what that does for the valuation of your crude condensates and the NGLs.
Okay, Tim, well, we know the methodology, and the methodology is simple. The actual application of it is more complex, and we don't have full sight of all of that. But we're fortunate that we have Pat Galvin on our team, and he's a former commissioner of the Department of Natural Resources in Alaska. And here's what we do know. As almost anywhere, the lower end of the NGL stream is worth less, and the higher end is worth more. All of the liquids, 100% of the liquids that are produced on the North Slope go into TAPS. There is a third party that's been hired by the operators to keep the quality bank and do the pricing methodology. The lower end of our NGL stream, talk about ethanes and propanes, would receive a discount to the ANS price. The upper end, talk about natural gasoline, et cetera, and condensates, would receive a premium, as would our crude oil, which we believe is the highest quality crude oil produced on the North Slope. When we put all those together, and I think I mentioned earlier, we're not, because of the separation equipment we currently have, we're not capturing all of those heavier, high-end NGLs condensate that would add some significant value to our liquid hydrocarbon mix. But when we put together what we can capture, we believe we would get a TAPS pricing at about 80 to 90% of the ANS price. And ANS sells at about the equivalent of Brent. So that's where we are right now, Tim, on the pricing.
Okay, given everything you've told me about the pricing, the rig, the speculation, I've got to ask you, gentlemen, I mean, Alkaid, is it still a viable project?
The answer to that is yes, it is still a viable project. But the numbers are that we're producing about 200 barrels of oil and about 350 barrels that we can capture of this NGL and condensate stream. And we believe that that is coming from about 4,000 feet of the lateral. Our original guidance, and this was a very robust project, and people can go back and look at the numbers we have quoted in the past for Alkaid. Our original guidance was 150 barrels of oil per 1,000 feet, and we're producing about 550 barrels of liquid hydrocarbon, the mix, in about 4,000 feet, we believe. So we're producing about 137.5 barrels of liquid hydrocarbon versus our guidance of 150. It's not too far off, and given the pricing, and I believe that when we are ultimately able to capture the rest of those high ends, we would be very, very near to ANS pricing, and we still are going to be able to clean out this wellbore and, I believe, improve those numbers. So yes, it is still a very, very viable project. Yeah.
Right, so Bob, let me come to you now with a technical question for the technical director. Can you please explain, in layman's terms, what's happening inside the reservoir to produce this amount of NGLs and condensate?
Well, very simply, Tim, we have gas that is dissolved in the oil, in the reservoir. What's happening as we've started producing that reservoir, the gas is what's called exsolved out of the reservoir. It's coming out of the reservoir. And when it does that, it also is coming out and carrying with it these NGLs. And it just so happens that we have a very, very rich gas. And so the NGLs are coming out of solution into the gas, exsolving with the gas when we've dropped the pressure in the reservoir. That's it in very simple terms. We're producing more gas than we were expecting, but we were always expecting to produce gas. And in that, we always knew we would be using the gas for electrical power generation and compression, using the gas for compression to put the gas back in the ground. So we were always going to re-inject the gas. So and we're not limited to how much gas we have. It has to do with the compression. So it's all there. But the other point is telling us that we have a lot of energy in the reservoir, more than we expected when we first drilled the well. And that energy, the gas, is helping to lift the hydrocarbons out of the ground, which typically means we're going to get a better recovery, which is a positive.
Okay, Bob, thanks for that. Let me come back to you now for one final question before I go back to Jay. Give us a quick update, please. What's the status of data rooms, Farmouts? Where are you?
So, that's a good question, Tim. Look, we have a massive light oil project. We recognize that we need a partner or a farm-and-e. We have 100% of the project. We've done the work with Schlumberger. They're the best. They're the biggest service company in the world. They have taken all our data, everything we have, 10 years worth of work, and they've synthesized it in such a way that we can now bring in partners and potential partners and farm-and-e's to evaluate our acreage. We're in the middle of testing the Alkaid well, and that data is being incorporated into the package from Schlumberger, and we have a number of parties that have already expressed interest in the project, and it is absolutely the focus of our technical team's attention to bring in a partner or farm-and-e for the project.
Thanks, Bob. Jay, back to you. Final question: what should we be looking out for next coming out of Pantheon in terms of news?
We've got Tim. Sorry, we've got two things coming up. One, we're going to have a webinar, and we're planning that probably for next week. We're working that now. And secondly, of course, when we get the rig to come in, pull the tubing in the packer and go in and clean it out, that'll be an announcement. We'll put the well back on production, and sometime after that, we will be reporting the results of the Alkaid #2 again, Tim. So.
Okay, we'll keep an eye out for that, and you must come back and update us on progress. Thanks for being with us today. That was Jay Cheatham and Bob Rosenthal from Pantheon Resources. As I said at the top of the show, Pantheon listed in London on the AIM market with a ticker of PANR. That's it for this edition of Blythe Ray Business News. Thanks for watching.